Maybe you're not a nice guy. Maybe being a nice guy is actually a trauma response to past abuse. So, today I would like to explain to you the source of your nice guy behavior so that you can overcome it. I've made some accidental recent discoveries lately that have revealed to me some of my own past nice guy behaviors and nice guy behaviors in general, where I realized that every man who displays people-pleasing traits, aka being a nice guy, has some type of trauma, has some type of abuse in his past. Now, a lot of you are going to jump and tell me, Jad, I haven't been abused and I don't have trauma. So first, let's define what abuse means and what trauma means to see that it does actually apply to you. So, it's very hard for us to grow up into adults without somebody or something hurting us in the process. So when I say you've been abused in the past, it doesn't mean necessarily that you had a parent that beat you, and it doesn't mean that you were physically abused in a terrible way or sexually abused or anything like that. It could have just been that somebody was abusive enough to you that it hurt you in a way that you developed coping mechanisms to survive that situation or that person. And what happens, and that's what's called a trauma response, right? And so what happens is then you take this coping mechanism that worked to keep you safe as a child, and then you bring it into your adult life, but in your adult life, it no longer yields positive results. Let me just give you an example. So, people pleasing. If you had a parent that was always on your case, always yelling at you, always telling you you're wrong, the way you're doing everything is wrong, one method you developed to defend yourself was to be very agreeable, to not impose what you actually thought, your real opinion, but rather to go along, to submit, right? And when you submitted to your parent, when you acted like a good boy, when you were people-pleasing towards your mother or your father, they would get off your case. So as a child, you learned some people-pleasing behaviors, some submission behaviors that got your parents off your back. So in that situation, that behavior of people-pleasing kept you safe. The problem is, then we grow up and we keep the same patterns, but life has changed. Now you're an adult, now you're powerful, now you can defend yourself, yet you're still automatically using child coping mechanisms in your adult life. So one common one is the people pleasing. So as a child, you used people pleasing to get away from your bullies, to get away from your parents when they were being aggressive. And in that context, it worked for you. It yielded a positive outcome, aka kept you safe. But now you're an adult, you're in the workplace, or you're trying to date women, and you're being very appeasing, very people-pleasing in these worlds. And of course, as it turns out, let me turn on the AC. As it turns out, it doesn't work too well in adult life, does it? When you're people-pleasing at work, people mistake kindness for weakness. When you're too people-pleasing and you submit, you get passed over for promotions. And then, of course, with women, if you're too people-pleasing, too agreeable, you don't have a strong backbone, you don't really have a strong opinion, women slot you as a nice guy and they don't feel any attraction towards you. So, what you need to understand is that there's a difference between being kind and being a nice guy. Yes, you are kind. One of the most common objections I get is, oh, Jad, but I am a nice guy. I don't want to pretend to be an asshole. Nobody's telling you to be inauthentic. Nobody's telling you to be an asshole or mean. Nobody's telling you to be anything you're not. But you need to understand the difference between a nice guy and a kind man is that a nice guy puts people before himself and hurts himself in order to serve people, which is toxic for him. A kind man lives in service of the world and is in service of others, but not at the cost of his own well-being. You see what I'm saying? So nice guy behaviors, people-pleasing behaviors. So people-pleasing is a trauma response. If you're a people pleaser, that means somebody dominated you when you were young, and they kind of, not that they broke your spirit, but they trained you to be kind of like this obedient servant that bows to them. And what happens is now you took this bowing, obedient servant, people-pleasing habit, and you're unconsciously running it in your adult life. And that's costing you money, that's costing you sex, that's costing you respect. So, I made another video. It's called Nice Guy is a Trauma Response. It's on my new channel. You can see the link in the description below, or just search Nice Guy is a Trauma Response. There are actually specific terms for this people-pleasing. One is the fawn response, the second one is codependency. We go deep into it in that video, which you can watch next. But you need to understand, what I want to give you here is give yourself a break. If you're a nice guy, you're probably like, oh, I'm too nice. Why am I so nice? I tried to change his behavior, it doesn't change. It's because people-pleasing, aka being a nice guy, listen to my words, is an involuntary trauma response. Involuntary. It's become automatic because it was programmed into you when you were a kid. So what you want to start doing now is bringing awareness to these people-pleasing patterns that you have. Understand that they are trauma responses. Understand that when you were a kid, they worked well, but now as an adult, they're working against you. And then once you see all of that, link it together, go watch that other video I made, then you will be one step closer to stepping away from being a nice guy and towards being a powerful, kind man. And a powerful, kind man is respected in the workplace. A powerful, kind man triggers attraction in women. If you're a nice guy, it's not your fault. Somebody hurt you when you were younger, and you developed people-pleasing coping mechanisms to survive that. It's not your fault. It doesn't define you. You are not a nice guy. You are a kind man who's displaying involuntary trauma responses. But when you watch that other video that I made, you're going to get clarity and enlightened to what's really going on with you, and then you'll change it, and you'll go back into your power. All right, I hope that helped. Peace.